So we've gone in and we've cut up our geometry into separate vertices for the X, Y, and Z. And now we're going to do a minimal amount of sewing together. And what that means is that I'm going to try and join some of the seams together that'll make it easier to work on in Photoshop, and it'll make our textures a little bit more seamlessly, depending on whether we've got patterns like scales or designs of any kind. So I'm going to go ahead and start to work on that a little bit. So the way to do that, I'm going to address these separate shells. And I'm going to right click on the ear and I'm going to choose shell. And what that's going to let me do now is, with the aid of my move tool, take that ear and put it over here. The reason I cut the ear off is because I like to put the back of the neck against here where it belongs, so that in the event there is a texture back there, the ear can be dealt with separately as a separate piece, and this would be a nicer way to keep it more seamless on the back of the model. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose edge. And if I was to select an edge now, you'll see that a corresponding edge is selected as well. So I've selected this edge and I can see the corresponding shell right here. So I know that I can snap this over to there and make that seamless. So I'm going to do that by going to polygons and I'm going to choose move and sew. And you can see now that piece is there pretty nicely. Now the gap here is for that ear that's up here. I know if I select this, it's going to snap this polygon plane to the top of the head. All right, so I'm not too sure I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to go here now. I'll go to shell again. This is the top of the head. I think I'll rotate it a bit and just bring it in closer like so and put that right there. All right, so I think what I'll probably do is maybe I'll start to sew the top of the head to the side of the head here. So once again, I'm going to go to edge. I'll select this one, and I know these are corresponding to the ones directly below, and each time I select one, the brown line associated with it is selected as well. So once again, I'll go to polygons, and I'll choose move and sew. Now I also know that if I select this one, that's going to be that one. So either I'll click on polygons, move and sew, or I'll hit G, the previous function. I'm going to say Command S to save this at this point. So I'm going to do a little bit more, but minimal. All right, I don't want this to get too out of hand. And again, it really, the complication or how complex your textures will dictate how far I really have to go with this. So I know that if I select this edge, there's the corresponding plane there. There's this one. I think I'll hit G there. I'm not going to bother trying to close this out. That would be too much of a stretch, perhaps. Let's see what happens. We'll do this. We'll leave it like that. I'm going to hit Command S to save. All right. Now, another thing I'd like to do is deal with perhaps the back of the bottom part of the neck here. So I know if I go to edge on this one and I select an edge, there's the corresponding edge. I'll go to polygon, move and sew. And I'll hit Command S to save. Now, I also know that what I've done is you can see I've broken these things up. And there'll be a texture map, a screen grab, and I'm going to go ahead and color everything that is X, Y, and Z in their respective colors of green, blue, and red, so you can kind of do the association outside the actual video tutorial. But what I'm going to take a look at now is the inside of the mouth. So here's the inside of the mouth, and I'm going to go to shell. And I know that I don't really have to deal with sewing this in any capacity because this is all going to be one solid inside, maybe red or whatever, but it doesn't have to be blended in very with a great deal of difficulty. So I'm going to select this little piece, which is the front of the mouth, the bottom jaw. So if I was to spin this around and look, you'll see when I select it, the polygon face is selected as well. So I can be sure of what I'm selecting in the texture editor by referring to the model. So once again, I'm going to select the edge of that. I'm going to zoom in pretty closely on this, select one edge, and then I'll go to move and sew. And I'll hit Command S to save, and I'll hit continue. I'm going to hit A to zoom back on this. Now, I'm going to leave the mouth over here, the tongue. These are all separate entities. The teeth can be separated out, dealt with that way. So the next thing I want to do is I want to look at the bottom of the boat, where the bottom of the boat meets the side edge of the body. So once again, I'm going to go to Edge, and I'll look for an edge that has something in common here. So I selected, and there it is. I'm going to go to Move and Sew. And I'll do a few more of these, and I'm hitting G, like so. I'll select these and do that. All right, so, this is getting a little crazy down this end. So I think what I'll do is I'm not going to go any further than that because this is going to be the bottom. Well, let's see. So I think what I'll do now is I'm going to work on the back edge here, which is right here. Okay, that series of faces. So if I select the face, you can see there's the corresponding geometry. So I want to put this in separately from that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose edge. I know that if I select this edge, it's now brown, you can see the edges select on the model, and I go up to this where it says tool, there's a little scissor. If I click on that now, and then I right click and I go to shell, I can now separate it. I have separated that piece out. I can now put it into position, and I'm going to start to rotate it a bit. And I'm going to put that roughly where it should go. And then once again, I'll right click, I'll choose edge, select an edge. In fact, I'll select both of these because I know they're going to be sewn there. So I'll go to polygons, move and sew. And I'll hit Command S to save and continue. So if I was to go to shell now, this is the top edge of the boat. There it is. Okay, another y-axis segment. So now I'll get my move tool by hitting W, and I'll put this kind of like so. And I think I'll sew these together as well. So I'm going to hold down the space bar, I'll go to edge, and I know that all these edges correspond to one another. And you can see as I shift select the lower edge where the body is, that top piece selects as well. So I'll go in and I'll get all these little edges, and then I'm going to go to polygon, move and sew, Command S to save, and so on. All right, now what I'm also going to do while I'm at it, I'll get this shell, I'll grab the inside of the boat, and I've done the inside of the boat from the y-axis. And I did that because the inside of the boat is really not that important, I don't think, in the context of a game environment. So I think it's negligible that we do the y-axis for everything. All right, so I'll hit Command S to save, and I'll hit continue. And I'm going to do a little bit more work on this, then we'll come back to see what our results are.